Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the Stellar Harmony, watching the alien space station grow larger through the thick glass. The massive structure looked like a crystal flower floating in the darkness of space. Its towers stretched out in all directions, glowing with soft blue light. This was Nexus Prime, the most important station in the hegemony's territory. "First time seeing something like this?" asked Colonel Lisa Park, joining him at the window. She wore her military uniform with pride, even though the aliens had made it clear they did not want armed humans on their station. "First time for all of us," Jake replied. He was nervous, but tried not to show it. As Earth's first ambassador to the hegemony, he carried the hopes of billions of people on his shoulders. "Hard to believe we're actually here." Dr. Alex Carter walked over, carrying a tablet full of notes. "The energy readings from that station are incredible. Their technology is at least 300 years ahead of ours. Maybe more." Emma Stone looked up from her communication equipment. "I'm getting their docking instructions now. They want us to follow their security ship to Bay 7. She paused, frowning. "They're also scanning our ship pretty thoroughly." Jake nodded. They had expected this. The hegemony was a collection of 12 different alien species that had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. Humans were newcomers, having only developed faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. To the aliens, Earth was probably just another primitive world trying to join the big leagues. The docking process took 2 hours. The alien security procedures were strict and humiliating. Human weapons were confiscated, their personal items searched, and each team member was scanned multiple times, the aliens treating them like dangerous criminals rather than diplomatic guests. When they finally entered the station proper, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The corridors were made of some kind of living crystal that changed colors as they walked. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the halls. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking plants, and a few resembled nothing Jake had ever imagined. Their escort was a tall, thin creature with gray skin and 4 arms. It spoke through a translation device that made its voice sound metallic and cold. "Follow me to the council chamber. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless spoken to." The council chamber was enormous, with a curved ceiling that showed the stars outside. 12 representatives sat in a circle, each one representing a different species in the hegemony. At the center sat High Counselor Vexthara, a reptilian creature with golden scales and sharp teeth. "So these are the humans," Vexthara said, looking down at them with obvious disgust. "Smaller than I expected, and they still wear animal skins." She was referring to Jake's leather shoes. Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Honored council members, I am Ambassador Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Government. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation between our peoples." Several of the alien counselors made sounds that the translation device turned into laughter. One of them, a creature that looked like a walking tree, spoke up. "Friendship? You primitives have nothing to offer us. Your ships are made of metal and powered by chemical rockets. Your weapons are projectile-based. Your technology is laughably outdated." "We may not have your advanced technology," Jake replied calmly, "but we have other qualities. We're quick to learn, adaptable, and we've survived many challenges on our home world." "Survived?" Vexthara's voice carried amusement. "Your species has existed for what? A few 100,000 years? We have records going back millions of years. Your children playing with fire." Colonel Park stepped forward. "With respect, Counselor, humanity has faced extinction-level events multiple times. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, global wars, plagues. We're still here because we know how to survive." This brought more laughter from the council. A floating creature with tentacles spoke through bubbling sounds. Survival against natural disasters is nothing compared to the organized might of the hegemony. We have conquered entire star systems. We have weapons that can crack planets in half. Dr. Carter tried a different approach. Perhaps we could share scientific knowledge. Earth has developed some unique solutions to problems you might find interesting. Unique solutions? Vexthara stood up, her tall form casting a shadow over the humans. What could a species that still uses nuclear fission possibly teach us? We mastered fusion power before your ancestors discovered fire. Jake felt the situation slipping away from him. We're not here to claim superiority. We simply want to establish peaceful relations, trade agreements, cultural exchange, mutual non-aggression pacts. Non-aggression? The reptilian counselor's laugh was like breaking glass. You misunderstand your position, little human. This is not a negotiation between equals. This is us deciding what to do with you. The atmosphere in the room changed. The alien counselors leaned forward, their various eyes and sensory organs focused on the human delegation. Jake realized they had walked into a trap. Here are our terms, Vexthara continued. Your solar system will become a protectorate of the hegemony. Your military will be disbanded. Your government will answer to our appointed administrator. You will provide resources and labor as we require. That's not acceptable, Jake said firmly. Earth will not surrender its independence. Independence? The floating creature's tentacles writhed with what might have been amusement. You have no independence. You exist because we allow it. One word from this council, and your primitive world could be reduced to radioactive dust. Colonel Park's hand moved instinctively toward where her weapon would have been. You're threatening genocide. We're offering mercy, Vexthara replied. Submit peacefully, and your species will be preserved as a useful labor force. Resist, and we will do what we've done to dozens of other stubborn species. Emma Stone had been quietly recording everything. Her equipment was hidden in what looked like a normal communication device. She caught Jake's eye and nodded slightly. They were getting all of this on record. We need time to consider your offer, Jake said, though he knew what Earth's answer would be. You have one solar rotation, Vexthara declared. Return to your ship and contact your leaders. Tell them that the hegemony has spoken. As they were escorted back to their ship, Jake noticed the increased security. More guards, more weapons, more scanning equipment. The aliens were taking no chances docked once aboard the Stellar Harmony. Emma immediately began preparing an encrypted message for Earth. I intercepted some of their communications, she whispered. They're not planning to wait for our answer. A war fleet is already being assembled. Jake looked out at the beautiful crystal station one more time. Then we'd better warn Earth. They have no idea what's coming. The Stellar Harmony undocked from Nexus Prime and jumped to hyperspace, carrying news that would change everything. Behind them, the hegemony began preparing for what they thought would be a simple conquest of a primitive world. They had no idea they were about to wake a sleeping giant. The emergency meeting was called at 3 a.m, but President Kate Sullivan was already awake. She had been expecting this call ever since the diplomatic mission left for hegemony space. The secure conference room beneath the white house filled quickly with the most important people in Earth's government. Admiral Roy Jackson was the first to arrive, still wearing his exercise clothes from his morning run. General Lisa Park had returned from the diplomatic mission just hours earlier, and the stress showed on her face. Dr. Maya Torres, head of the secret Prometheus Research Division, carried a briefcase that never left her side. Give me the bad news, President Sullivan said, as soon as everyone was seated. Jake Morrison, appearing on the main screen from orbit, looked exhausted. They're not interested in peace, Madam President. They want complete surrender. Our solar system becomes their territory. Our government answers to them, and humanity becomes their labor force. And if we refuse? Asked Admiral Jackson. They'll destroy us, Colonel Park answered. They made that very clear. They've done it before to other species that wouldn't submit. Dr. Torres opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. How much time do we have? Emma Stone's voice came through the speakers. I intercepted their military communications. They're mobilizing a war fleet now. We estimate they'll be here in 72 hours. The room fell silent. 72 hours to prepare for a war against an enemy with technology centuries ahead of Earth's. President Sullivan looked around the table at the faces of her advisors. Some looked scared, others determined, but none looked ready to give up. Tell me about their military capabilities, she said. Jake's image flickered as he accessed his files. 200 ships in the invasion fleet. Their smallest vessels are larger than our biggest battleships. They have energy weapons that can cut through our armor like paper. Their shields can absorb nuclear explosions. Their faster-than-light drives are at least 10 times faster than ours. They also have something else, Colonel Park added. Arrogance. They think we're so primitive that we can't possibly hurt them. They see us as an annoyance, not a threat. Admiral Jackson leaned forward. That might be the only advantage we have. Maya, please tell me you have something in that research division of yours. Dr. Torres smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Actually, Admiral, we've been preparing for this day since we first detected alien signals 15 years ago. We call it the Titan Protocol. She activated a holographic display that showed the entire solar system. Red dots appeared throughout the asteroid belt, around the major planets, and even in the outer reaches of the system. What am I looking at? President Sullivan asked. Defense platforms, Dr. Torres explained. Hidden military installations, weapons depots, supply caches. For the past decade, every mining mission, every scientific expedition, every civilian construction project has had a secondary purpose. We've been fortifying the entire solar system. The red dots multiplied as the display updated. There were hundreds of them, scattered throughout human space. The aliens expect to find a primitive world with basic defenses, Dr. Torres continued. Instead, they're going to find that we've turned our entire solar system into a fortress. Admiral Jackson studied the display. What kind of weapons are we talking about? Kinetic bombardment platforms in the asteroid belt, nuclear missile silos on the moon, plasma cannons on the orbital stations, mass drivers hidden in the mining facilities. And that's just the beginning. President Sullivan felt a spark of hope. You're telling me we can actually fight these things? We can more than fight them, Dr. Torres said. We can win, but only if we're smart about it. Their technology is superior, but they think like civilized beings. They follow rules of war, honor codes, predictable tactics. We need to think like what we really are. Which is? Asked Colonel Park. Survivors from a death world, Admiral Jackson said, understanding immediately. They evolved on worlds where the biggest threat was other intelligent species. We evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, climate changes. We learned to adapt or die. Dr. Torres nodded. Exactly. They fight like generals commanding armies. We need to fight like pack hunters taking down prey. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent beep from the communication system. Emma Stone's voice crackled through the speakers. Priority alert. A hegemony fleet just jumped into hyperspace. They're coming. President Sullivan stood up. How long? 18 hours, came the reply. The room erupted in activity. Admiral Jackson began issuing orders to his staff. Colonel Park contacted the military commanders around the world. Dr. Torres opened secure channels to the hidden installations throughout the solar System. President Sullivan walked to the window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was racing toward Earth, confident in their superiority. They had no idea what they were about to face. "Maya," she said without turning around, "you mentioned this was just the beginning. What else do you have?" Dr. Torres smiled again, but this time it was not pleasant. "Phase 2 of the Titan Protocol. We're going to show them why humans are the apex predators of their home world." 18 hours later, the hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. War Commander Cuth Sailor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, and looked at the primitive star system before him. One small yellow star, a few rocky planets, and a lot of empty space. "Tactical report," he ordered. "Minimal defenses detected," his aide reported. "A few orbital stations around the third planet. Some basic satellites. Their largest ships appear to be chemical-powered vessels, less than a kilometer long." Cuth Sailor nodded. This would be easier than he had expected. "Open a channel to the human homeworld." The transmission was answered immediately. A human female in military uniform appeared on the screen. "This is Admiral Roy Jackson of the United Earth. Navy, you are entering sovereign human territory. Withdraw immediately. I am War Commander Cuth Sailor of the Hegemony 4th Fleet. Your system is now under our protection. Surrender your defenses and prepare for occupation." The human admiral's expression didn't change. "You were warned. You chose to ignore those warnings. Now you face the consequences." Cuth Sailor laughed. "Consequences? From a species that builds ships from metal and still uses projectile weapons? Your bravado is admirable, but pointless." "We'll see about that," Admiral Jackson replied, and cut the transmission. The war commander turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the advance. Deploy the fleet in standard formation." This should be over quickly. As the hegemony fleet moved deeper into the solar system, they passed through the asteroid belt. The rocks floating in space looked harmless enough, just debris left over from the system's formation. The aliens paid them no attention. That was their first mistake. Hidden among the asteroids, automated systems came online. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as mining equipment began targeting the alien ships. Nuclear warheads mounted on kinetic drivers, prepared to launch. The trap was set on Earth. Admiral Jackson watched the fleet's approach from the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him, officers monitored displays showing the positions of every ship, every weapon, every hidden installation. In the solar system, "All stations report ready," his aide announced. Admiral Jackson nodded. "Send the activation signal. Wake up the Titan." Throughout the solar system, red lights began blinking on hundreds of hidden installations. The sleeping giant was stirring, and it was not happy about being disturbed. The hegemony fleet continued its advance, unaware that they were flying directly into the most elaborate trap in human history. War Commander Cuth Sailor was already planning. His victory speech when the first explosions lit up the darkness of space. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The first explosions caught the hegemony fleet completely off guard. What looked like ordinary asteroids suddenly erupted in brilliant flashes of nuclear fire. The aliens' energy shields, designed to deflect laser weapons and plasma bolts, were not prepared for the massive kinetic impacts that followed. War Commander Cuth Sailor watched in shock as 3 of his escort vessels simply disappeared in balls of flame. What just happened? He shouted. His tactical officer was frantically checking his instruments. "Sir, the asteroids are armed. They're launching projectiles at incredible speeds." "Impossible." Cuth Sailor snarled. "Intelligence reports said these humans were primitive. They use chemical rockets." Another explosion lit up the darkness as a hidden mass driver hurled a chunk of metal at nearly the speed of light. The projectile punched through the shields of a hegemony cruiser like they weren't. Even there, venting atmosphere and bodies into space. "Sir, we're detecting movement throughout the system," the sensor operator reported. "Multiple contacts approaching from all directions." On the main display, dozens of new contacts appeared. Ships were emerging from behind moons, from within asteroid fields, from the shadow of planets. They were smaller than the hegemony vessels, but there were many of them, and they were moving fast. Captain Nick Ryan sat in the command chair of the Midnight Wolf, one of Earth's newest stealth destroyers. His ship had been hiding in the shadow of Jupiter's moon Io for the past 6 months, waiting for this moment. "All systems green," his weapons officer reported. "Nuclear pulse drive at full power. Stealth field holding." "Good," Ryan said. "Remember, we're not trying to fight fair. We're trying to survive. Take us in fast and hard. Target their command ship." The Midnight Wolf accelerated toward the alien fleet, its nuclear pulse drive pushing it to incredible speeds. Around it, dozens of other human ships were doing the same thing, converging on the enemy like a pack of wolves attacking a herd. War Commander Cuthsiller was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. These humans didn't fight like any civilized species he had encountered. Instead of forming battle lines and engaging in honorable combat, they were swarming his fleet from all directions. "Deploy defensive formation," he ordered. "All ships maintain distance and use your range advantage." But the humans weren't cooperating with his plans. Instead of backing off when faced with superior firepower, they seemed to become more aggressive. Ships that were heavily damaged continued attacking instead of retreating. Some actually accelerated toward his vessels, trying to ram them. Dr. Alex Carter, now aboard the command ship Terra's Wrath, monitored the battle from the scientific station. Around him, military officers coordinated the attack, but he was watching something else. The psychological profile of the enemy. "They're confused," he reported to Admiral Jackson. "Their battle computers are designed to fight predictable opponents. They can't adapt to our tactics." "What do you mean?" the Admiral asked. "Look at their formation." Carter pointed to the tactical display. "They're trying to maintain organized battle lines while we're attacking from everywhere at once. Their ships are getting in each other's way." Admiral Jackson smiled grimly. "They're thinking like prey animals. When attacked, they bunch together for protection. But we're not prey animals." On the Midnight Wolf, Captain Ryan's ship was closing fast. On the alien flagship, energy beams lanced out from the enemy vessel, but Ryan's navigator was ready for them. The human ship twisted and rolled, using its smaller size and superior maneuverability to avoid the worst of the fire. "Hull breach on deck 3. His damage," control officer reported. "Engines at 80%. "Keep us moving," Ryan ordered. "Arm the nuclear warheads. We're going to give them something to remember." The Midnight Wolf was dying, but it wasn't dead yet. Ryan's crew had trained for this moment, knowing that their ship might not survive the battle. They had accepted that price. "Sir, we're in range," the weapons officer announced. "Fire everything." Ryan commanded. The small destroyer unleashed its entire arsenal at point-blank range. Nuclear warheads, kinetic projectiles, and conventional missiles all streaked toward the alien flagship. The hegemony vessel's shields flared and sparked under the assault. Commander Cuthsiller felt his ship shudder under the impact. "Damage report. Shields down to 40%. His engineer reported. "Hull breaches on multiple decks." "How is that possible? That ship is a fraction of our size." "Sir, they're not using energy weapons. They're using primitive nuclear devices and kinetic projectiles. Our shields aren't calibrated for this type of attack." The war commander was beginning to understand. These humans fought with the weapons they had, not the weapons they should have. They used nuclear bombs like bullets and hurled chunks of metal like spears. It was primitive, brutal, and terrifyingly effective. All ships, recalibrate shields for kinetic impact. He ordered. Adjust targeting systems for multiple small targets. But it was too late. The human fleet was already among his ships, and they were fighting like nothing he had ever seen. When a human vessel was damaged, instead of retreating, it would charge straight at the nearest enemy ship. When cornered, they became more dangerous. Not less. Captain Ryan watched his tactical display as more enemy ships converged on his position. His ship was badly damaged, life support was failing, and half his crew was dead or wounded. By all military logic, he should surrender or retreat. Instead, he smiled. All remaining power to engines, he ordered. We're going to ram that flagship. His surviving crew members looked at him with expressions of determination, not fear. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be a one-way trip. They were humans, and humans didn't give up. The Midnight Wolf accelerated directly toward the alien command ship. Energy beams tore through its hull, but the ship kept coming. War Commander Keth Sailor watched in horror as the primitive vessel approached his flagship. Evasive maneuvers. He screamed, but the Dominion was too large and too slow. The human destroyer struck it amidships, and both ships disappeared in a nuclear fireball that could be seen from Earth. Throughout the battle, similar scenes played out. Human ships fought with a ferocity that shocked the aliens. They used tactics that no civilized species would consider, turning their own vessels into weapons when necessary. Dr. Carter watched the battle data flowing across his screens. They're starting to retreat, he reported. The enemy formation is breaking up. Admiral Jackson nodded. Signal all ships. Let them go. We've made our point. The surviving hegemony vessels fled toward the edge of the solar system, their formation shattered and their confidence destroyed. They had come expecting to fight primitives and found themselves facing something far more dangerous. War Commander Keth Sailor, now aboard an escape pod after his flagship was destroyed, looked back at the human solar system. His fleet of 200 ships had been reduced to fewer than 90 in just a few hours. The humans had lost ships too, but they had fought like demons. Signal the Hegemony Council, he ordered his communications officer. Tell them we need reinforcements, many reinforcements. How many, sir? Keth Sailor thought about the battle he had just witnessed. Ships that fought to the death, crews that chose destruction over surrender, tactics that defied every rule of civilized warfare. All of them, he said quietly. Send every ship we have. These humans are not what they appear to be. Back on Earth, Admiral Jackson surveyed the damage reports. They had won the first battle, but the cost had been high. Many good ships and crews had been lost, and he knew this was just the beginning. Maya, he said to Dr. Torres, who was analyzing the battle data, we're going to need Phase 2 of the Titan Protocol. They'll be back, and they'll be ready for us this time. Dr. Torres nodded. I'll begin preparations immediately. But Admiral, there's something you should know. The aliens aren't just going to send more ships. They're going to change their tactics. They've learned that we're dangerous. Good, Admiral. Jackson replied. Let them learn. Because we're just getting started. In the darkness of space, the debris from the battle drifted slowly among the asteroids. But hidden in that debris were automated systems, recording everything, analyzing the alien technology, preparing for the next phase of the war. The humans had won their first victory, but they knew their enemy would return. And when they did, Earth would be ready. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council was unlike any in their 1,000-year history. A great crystal chamber on Nexus Prime buzzed with angry voices in dozens of languages. High Counselor Vex Thara stood at the center, Her golden scales darkened with rage. "Explain to me," she hissed, "how a primitive species with chemical rockets destroyed half of our invasion fleet." War Commander Keth Sailor, his uniform torn and his confidence shattered, stood before the council. They were not what our intelligence reported. They had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. Hidden bases, automated defenses, coordinated attacks from every direction. "You're telling us you were defeated by clever positioning?" The floating counselor's tentacles writhed with disbelief. "We have conquered species far more advanced than these humans." "No," Keth Sailor said quietly. "We were defeated by something we didn't understand. These humans don't fight like any civilized species. They fight like wild animals. When cornered, they become more dangerous. When their ships are damaged, they use them as weapons. They have no concept of honorable surrender." The tree-like counselor's branches rustled with agitation. "You're saying they're barbarians?" "I'm saying they're survivors," Keth Sailor replied. "Their whole species evolved to fight for survival against impossible odds. They don't know how to give up." High Counselor Vexthara slammed her clawed hand on the council table. "Then we send more ships. Overwhelm them with numbers they cannot possibly match. We are assembling the Grand Fleet," announced Admiral Zeth Kalar, the hegemony's most experienced military commander. 500 ships, including our most advanced dreadnoughts. We will surround their system and starve them into submission." "And if they refuse to surrender?" asked the insectoid counselor. "Then we glass their planet," Vexthara said coldly. "We should have done that from the beginning." Meanwhile, in the depths of the Rocky Mountains, Earth's leaders were preparing for the storm they knew was coming. The secret command center hummed with activity as reports flowed in from across the solar system. President Sullivan looked tired but determined. "How long do we have?" 6 days, Admiral Jackson replied. "Maybe less. They're bringing everything they have this time." Dr. Maya Torres spread holographic displays across the conference table. "I've been analyzing the wreckage from the first battle. Their technology is even more advanced than we thought. Energy shields that can absorb our nuclear weapons, faster than light communication, weapons that can crack asteroids in half." "But they still lost," President Sullivan pointed out. "They lost because they underestimated us," Dr. Torres said. "They won't make that mistake again. This time, they'll come prepared for our tactics." Jake Morrison, now serving as strategic advisor after his return from the diplomatic mission, leaned forward. "What about Phase 2 of the Titan Protocol? You said it would give us an advantage." Dr. Torres smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Phase 2 is based on a simple principle. If you can't match your enemy's strength, you change the rules of the game entirely." She activated a new holographic display that showed the entire solar system. This time, instead of red dots marking weapons, there were green lines connecting every human installation, every ship, every outpost. "What am I looking at?" Admiral Jackson asked. "The real Titan," Dr. Torres explained. "Not just our weapons, but our entire civilization. Every mining station, every orbital platform, every scientific outpost has been designed with dual purposes. We're not just defending Earth. We're turning the entire solar system into a coordinated weapon." The display zoomed in on the asteroid belt. What had looked like random mining operations revealed themselves as a massive network of interconnected facilities. Mass drivers, fusion reactors, manufacturing plants, all working together. "The moon," Dr. Torres continued, highlighting. "Earth's natural satellite. We've been building inside it for decades. It's not just a military base. It's a fortress that can move." President Sullivan stared at the display. "You're talking about using the moon as a weapon?" "Among other things," Dr. Torres said. "The aliens think in terms of ship-to-ship combat. They're going to find out that we've militarized everything. Asteroids, moons, even the space between planets. Admiral Jackson understood immediately. You're talking about turning our entire solar system into a trap. Not a trap, Dr. Torres corrected. A living weapon. When the aliens arrive, they won't just be fighting our ships. They'll be fighting our entire civilization. 6 days later, the Hegemony Grand Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Zith Kalar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and surveyed the primitive star system before him. "Tactical report?" he ordered. 500 ships in formation, sir. All systems operational. The humans appear to have rebuilt their defenses, but nothing we can't handle." Seth Kalar nodded. This time, they were ready. His ships were equipped with kinetic shields and rapid-fire weapon systems. His formation was designed to counter the human swarm tactics. He had studied the battle recordings from the first engagement and learned from his predecessor's mistakes. "Deploy the fleet in defensive sphere formation," he ordered. "We'll surround their system and cut off all escape routes. Then we'll systematically destroy their defenses." The massive alien fleet spread out across the solar system, creating a sphere of ships that completely enclosed human space. Each vessel was positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire and mutual support. It was a textbook example of modern space warfare. On Luna Base, General Lisa Park watched the enemy deployment through the observation dome. The aliens had learned from their first defeat and were taking no chances. Their formation was nearly perfect. "They're good," she admitted to her aide. "Seth Kalar knows his business." "Will the Titan Protocol work against this formation?" The aide asked. General Park smiled. "They're thinking like military commanders. We're thinking like an ecosystem." Activate Phase 2. Throughout the solar system, systems that had been dormant for decades came online. The asteroid belt, which had seemed like random debris, revealed itself as a coordinated network of installations. Manufacturing facilities began producing weapons in real time. Mass drivers started hurling projectiles not at the enemy ships, but at calculated points in space. Admiral Zeth Kalar watched in confusion as the humans began firing at empty space. "What are they doing? They're wasting ammunition." His tactical officer was equally puzzled. "Sir, they're not targeting our ships. They're firing at ... nothing." That's when the first phase of the Titan Protocol activated. The projectiles the humans had fired weren't random. They were precisely calculated to create a debris field that would funnel the alien ships into predetermined corridors. "Sir, our formation is being disrupted," the navigator reported. "Debris fields are blocking our positioning." Zeth Kalar was beginning to understand. The humans weren't just fighting his ships. They were fighting his entire strategy. Evasive maneuvers reformed the sphere, but it was too late. The second phase activated as the moon itself began to move. Massive engines, hidden beneath the lunar surface for decades, fired in sequence. Earth's natural satellite was repositioning itself, and it was carrying the most powerful weapons in the human arsenal. "Sir, their moon is moving," the sensor operator reported in disbelief. Before Zeth Kalar could respond, the lunar surface opened like a flower. Hundreds of weapon ports revealed themselves, and the moon began firing with everything it had. Mass drivers, plasma cannons, nuclear launchers, all targeted at the alien fleet. But that was only the beginning. Throughout the solar system, installations that had looked like civilian facilities revealed their true nature. Asteroid mining ships became kinetic weapons. Space elevators deployed hidden missile batteries. Even the orbital habitat stations opened fire. The aliens found themselves fighting not just a fleet, but an entire civilization that had been designed for war. Every human installation was a weapon. Every piece of infrastructure was a trap. The entire solar system was coordinated like a single, massive organism. Admiral Zeth Kalar watched his perfect formation dissolve into chaos as his ships were attacked from every direction by weapons they couldn't even see. The humans had turned their weakness into strength, their entire civilization into a weapon. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Emergency scatter formation. We're not fighting a military. We're fighting a planet-sized organism." But the Titan was just getting started. Dr. Torres, coordinating the battle from the Lunar Command Center, watched as her life's work unfolded. The aliens had superior technology, but they were fighting on humanity's terms now. "Phase 3, she ordered. "Show them what Earth learned from living on a death world." The final phase of the Titan protocol activated, and the solar system itself became a weapon. The real battle was about to begin. Phase 3 of the Titan protocol was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. As Admiral Zeth Kalar's fleets scattered in confusion, they discovered that the humans had prepared for this exact scenario. The solar system itself became a living weapon, responding to threats like an immune system fighting off infection. The asteroid belt, which had seemed like random rocks floating in space, revealed its true nature. Thousands of automated mining ships suddenly changed course, their cargo holds full of refined metals and radioactive materials. They began hurling their loads at the alien ships with mathematical precision. "Sir, the asteroids are attacking us." Zeth Kalar's tactical officer reported in disbelief. "That's impossible," the admiral replied, but even as he spoke, he watched a mining vessel the size of a building crash into one of his cruisers. The impact sent both ships spinning into the darkness. On Earth, Emma Stone sat in the Global Communications Center, coordinating with human installations throughout the solar system. Her screens showed data streams from hundreds of sources. Every outpost, every ship, every hidden weapon reporting its status. "Mars base is firing mass drivers," she reported to Admiral Jackson. "Jupiter Station has launched kinetic interceptors. The outer system defenses are fully active." Admiral Jackson nodded, watching the tactical display. The alien fleet was being hit from every direction, but they were still fighting back. Their energy weapons were devastating when they could target human installations, but the humans had learned to be unpredictable. "Activate the swarm protocol," he ordered. Throughout the solar system, thousands of small automated vessels came online. They were maintenance pods, cargo haulers, scientific probes, anything that could move and carry a payload. Each one had been fitted with a simple guidance system and a nuclear warhead. The aliens had advanced shields and sophisticated weapons, but they couldn't track thousands of tiny targets moving in random patterns. The swarm descended on the hegemony fleet like angry bees, each small vessel targeting a different ship. Admiral Zeth Kalar watched in horror as his mighty dreadnoughts were overwhelmed by what looked like space garbage. Maintenance pods were ramming his ships. Cargo containers were exploding against his hulls. Even scientific instruments were being used as weapons. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They're using civilian equipment as military weapons." His aide, a young officer who had studied human behavior, looked up from his station. "Sir, I think that's the point. These humans don't separate military and civilian. Their entire society is designed for survival." The admiral was beginning to understand. The humans weren't just fighting with their military. They were fighting with their entire civilization. Every tool, every machine, every piece of technology had been designed with warfare in mind. On Luna Base, General Lisa Park coordinated the final phase of the battle. The moon's massive engines were still firing, keeping it in optimal position to support Earth's defenses. Around her, officers tracked the movement of every human asset in the solar system. "Sir, the enemy formation is completely broken," her tactical officer reported. "They're trying to regroup near Jupiter." "Don't let them," Park ordered. "Signal the outer system installations. Time to show them our long-range capabilities. Beyond the orbit of Pluto, installations that had been disguised as deep space monitoring stations revealed their true purpose. Massive railguns, built over decades in the outer darkness, began firing projectiles at incredible speeds. The shots would take hours to reach their targets, but when they did, they would hit with the force of small asteroids. Dr. Maya Torres watched the battle unfold from her command center deep inside the moon. Around her, the most advanced computers humanity had ever built coordinated the defense of the solar system. Every shot, every maneuver, every decision was calculated to maximum effect. Enemy casualties? She asked her aide. 60% in climbing, came the reply. They're starting to send surrender signals. Dr. Torres shook her head. Not yet. We need to make sure they understand what they're dealing with. Signal Jake Morrison. It's time for the final diplomatic phase. Jake Morrison sat in the communications center aboard the orbital station New Geneva. He had been waiting for this moment, preparing the words that would end the war one way or another. When the signal came, he opened a channel to the alien fleet. Admiral Zeth Kalar's battered flagship received the transmission. On his main screen appeared the same human who had negotiated with the Hegemony Council weeks earlier. But this time, the human was speaking from a position of strength. Admiral Zeth Kalar, Jake said calmly. I believe we have something to discuss. You ... You planned this, the Admiral said, looking at the destruction around his fleet. All of it. A diplomatic mission, the warnings, everything. Jake nodded. We tried to warn you. We told you that humanity had survived extinction-level events before. We told you we knew how to adapt. You chose not to listen. What do you want? Zeth Kalar asked, his pride finally broken. The same thing we wanted from the beginning, Jake replied. Peace, mutual respect, an end to your species' habit of enslaving others. Dr. Alex Carter appeared beside Jake on the transmission. We've been monitoring your communications since before your first fleet arrived. We know about the other species you've conquered. We know about the slave worlds, the forced labor, the cultural destruction. The Admiral's expression darkened. What are you saying? We're saying it ends now, Jake continued. You have a choice. You can retreat to your own territory and leave the other species alone, or you can continue this war. But understand, what you've seen today is just the beginning. This solar system is one small part of what humanity can do when we set our minds to it. Emma Stone's voice joined the transmission from Earth. We've already sent signals to every species in hegemony territory. They know what happened here. They know that the mighty hegemony fleet was defeated by a single star system. Admiral Zeth Kalar looked around his bridge at his surviving officers. They were watching him, waiting for his decision. Behind them, the tactical displays showed the continuing destruction of his fleet. And if we agree to your terms? He asked. Then we help you, Jake said simply. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, make friends in it. We're offering you the chance to be part of something better than conquest. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he turned to his communications officer. Signal the fleet. Cease all offensive operations. Prepare for negotiations. 3 days later, representatives from a dozen species met aboard the neutral station Harmony, hastily constructed in the asteroid belt. The Hegemony Council, humbled by their defeat, sat across from human negotiators and delegates from the species they had once enslaved. Counselor Vexthara looked very different from the arrogant creature who had dismissed humanity weeks. Earlier, her golden scales seemed duller, her sharp teeth less threatening. Your terms? She asked Jake Morrison. Simple, he replied. The hegemony becomes a voluntary confederation. No more slave worlds. No more forced tribute. Species join. Because they want to, not because they're conquered. And if we refuse? Jake gestured to the viewing port, where the wreckage of the hegemony fleet still drifted among the asteroids. Then you'll find out what else humanity learned from living on a death world. The negotiations took 2 weeks, but the result was never in doubt. The hegemony agreed to release all conquered species and restructure itself as a voluntary alliance. In return, humanity offered to share their defensive technologies and strategic thinking. Dr. Torres, now appointed as Earth's first director of galactic defense, met with Admiral Zeth Kalar in her new office aboard Luna Base. "You could have destroyed us completely," the Admiral said. "Why didn't you?" Dr. Torres looked out at the stars through the observation window. "Because destruction isn't survival. We didn't evolve to be killers. We evolved to be survivors. And sometimes the best way to survive is to help others survive too. Your species is unlike anything we've encountered," Seth Kalar admitted. "We're apex predators from the death world," Dr. Torres replied. "But we're also social creatures who learn to cooperate. That combination makes us very good at surviving and very good at helping others survive." 6 months later, Emma Stone stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova, humanity's first diplomatic vessel designed for interstellar service. She was heading to the former slave worlds, now free to choose their own governments. The galaxy had changed. Species that had been oppressed for centuries were building their own fleets. The hegemony still existed, but as a partner rather than a conqueror. And at the center of it all was Earth, the small blue world that had taught the galaxy a new way to think about power. Admiral Jackson, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Solar Defense Force, received daily reports from across human space. New colonies were being established, but each one was designed with the same principle that had saved Earth. Everything served multiple purposes, and everything was designed for survival. President Sullivan signed the final treaty documents in the White House Rose Garden, surrounded by representatives from dozens of worlds. The Galactic Cooperation Alliance was officially established, with Earth as its first headquarters. "You know," she said to Jake Morrison as they watched the ceremony, "a year ago we doubly